The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and the man joining me this week really relates to Lucy in those Peanuts cartoons. His name is Mike Roth.
She was the logical one, and she got capitalism like that.
She did. She offered advice for a fee.
Yeah, it was like a nickel or something.
A nickel?
That's really not that bad. For an unlicensed person, I guess it's pretty bad. It's against the law.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't think, you can be a cabbie and not have a medallion or a cabbie license. They call those hacks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can do it as a therapist and charge people money.
Yeah. Well, things were different back in
She was
Charles.
also terrible at holding a football.
Yeah. Well, no. She had a lot of handling skills on that. She did that on purpose. I know Lucy.
If anyone does, it's Mike Roth.
Yes, it is.
Sir, this week we have some films to talk about. And I'm going to get us started with our first film on our streaming spotlight. This one comes from Amazon Prime. It is a film called Sound of Metal from director Darius Marder. Stars Riz Ahmed as a man named Ruben. Also stars Olivia Cook as Lou. Ruben and Lou are a couple who are also in a band. She's the singer, he's the drummer. They reside in their Airstream RV, which serves as their tenement on wheels, while they are on a small concert tour with their band. And very early in the film, Ruben develops this quickly progressing hearing problem that diminishes his hearing by 80% and is getting worse rapidly. Not great when music is your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing is probably ideal. And he doesn't deal with this well. The fear and frustration kind of overwhelms him quickly. He goes to a doctor, finds out that the one hope for him is a cochlear implant surgery, which could help him hear. Unfortunately, it costs somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000. They do not have that. They are a struggling small band.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where we get into the heart of the film. Is we find out that Ruben is also a recovering addict, and Lou is kind of the reason that he's clean. She worked hard to get him clean, and she's his rock. And while he's breaking down over all of this, she's the one who kind of puts on the strong face to try and help him. Let's figure things out. But she also sees that this is a trigger for him to have a possible relapse, that he's showing signs, manic things going on, that this could be the sign for a relapse. So she gets him into a deaf community that is also for addicts, kind of a halfway house community for deaf.
That feels very specific.
It is. They got to drive several states. It's like a 3-day drive for them to get to this place, to try and help him keep his sobriety. And to deal with his loss and learn to live and learn to communicate. And he's got a sponsor of sorts, a man named Joe, played by Paul Ritchie. He's the guy who runs this program, kind of creates the program and runs it. And he sees potential in Ruben, but he also sees how stubborn Ruben is. Ruben doesn't want to change. He's a punk rock drummer.
Yeah.
He does not want to be told what to do and conform into what they want him to do. And the movie is really Ruben's struggle in this balance because everyone's telling him what he needs to do. And Lou, he enters this program and he can't have any contact with her. It's like absolute sobriety, isolation from the outside world to help you learn sign language. Deal with all this. It's a traumatic time in your life.
Yeah.
And all he's focused on is, I need to see Lou, and I need to do whatever I can to get this cochlear implant surgery because that will make everything right again. I can get right back to playing drums. He doesn't see that the money is one thing, and also that's not going to solve everything. You also need to address that you're not going to be just going back to the way you were before you lost your hearing, even with the cochlear implants. Life has changed for you. You're probably not going to be drumming a whole lot,
No.
And so it's a really interesting movie. And Riz Ahmed is great in this. Olivia Cooke is incredible. Like, I love her in everything.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it does feel a lot like her character from Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl was inserted into this role. It was a lot of that same character was brought into this character of Lou. I really enjoyed it. It was good. A lot of great music in this movie, and was
it mostly punk and metal?
I mean, yeah, but it was all kind of in the beginning of the film while
okay.
he was in the band, But it's watching a guy struggle with changes in his life that he does not want to have happen, and those moments where you start to accept the change, and then there's that trigger in your mind that says, "No, rebel against this. No, don't conform." And it's frustrating for everyone around you. I don't know. I mean, I've had addicts in my life, and you think like, okay, we've reached them. We've seen the breaking point, and then they veer off again. You're like, oh, why? And that's a lot of this. And it's a really interesting film. So Sound of Metal, I give 4 stars.
Very nice.
It's worth checking out. A couple of good lead actors in this one for sure. So.
Yeah, I like Olivia Cooke.
She's great.
She's nice.
What do you have for us, sir?
I have the Disney streaming movie. We're talking about Godmother, played by Jillian Bell. She is Eleanor. She is the youngest of the fairy godmothers, which is super awesome to be, except for current times where no one really uses the fairy godmother anymore. We have all the other little magical things that are very popular, but fairy godmothers have gone out of style. That forever after thing, just not a thing people are doing. Yeah. And so none of them is getting jobs, but they still go to class every day. Moira, played by Jane Curtin, she is the headmaster and the teacher. The classes meet all the time, and it seems to be only 3 things you really have to know, which kind of makes it funny. And all the other godmothers are very old. Jillian Bell finds out because of the demise of the program, it's probably going to get canceled unless a case is picked up and then turned into Forever After.
Sure.
So she goes into the archives. She finds a letter saying, "Please hook me up with this boy. I'm 10 years old. I want my Forever After." It's a little dated.
Right, yeah.
She goes to the real world to find this girl against the wishes of Moira, with the help of Agnes, her roommate, played by June Squibb.
Yeah.
And finds young Mackenzie, or older Mackenzie, who's already been cynical and hates the world and works way too hard and doesn't really have time to be with her family. Eleanor kind of does the elf routine where everything is surprising and everything is new, and what is this? What's this? Which Jillian Bell plays someone who doesn't know what's going on extremely well. She is very good at being that elf-like character. And I did like this movie. Eleanor, she befriends the kids and all the stuff goes on. There's learning lessons. Not going to go into that at all. But I think she played the character really well. There's nothing spectacular new about this. It's just clean family fun, and at the end it does have a little twist. She does try hooking up Eleanor with her Forever After. Hugh Prince, played by
I don't know, but he's the prince, right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Everyone needs their prince.
And it seems perfect because his last name was Prince. And but that's not the focus of the story. And that's one of the reasons why when this movie was all done, I really felt good. This is a movie about love, and for your Forever After isn't that cliche.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. And it's not anything new, but I always enjoy it when I see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's your typical fish out of water.
Yeah.
All that stuff. I like Isla Fisher in here as Mackenzie. I like her fine. She's miserable in her job working in news, and we're watching how, her and her boss create drama
Yeah.
twist the news to create drama for ratings. And her boss, who has worked with Jillian Bell last year in Brittany Runs a Marathon, which I thought was a great movie. He was her co-star in that, so it was great to see them paired up again in this.
Plays a really good jerk.
Yeah, he does. He did in Brittany Runs a Marathon as well. Real selfish guy. And you think this movie seems destined for one thing. You think Mackenzie is destined for one thing, and I really I liked the ending. I like a thing of saying you don't need a prince to be happy, and you stop trying to tell people what their happily ever after should look like and what love is supposed to look like. I like that. I think that the ending redeemed a mediocre film in my book.
Okay.
This movie was just I've seen this movie a dozen times.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. And I like Jillian. She's fun, but a lot of this film was kind of the same joke being told over and over again of her being like, "What's that? Oh, how's that work? Whoa, that's magic." So I thought that the end actually redeemed something that up to that point I was like, okay, check my watch, and then I'm like, oh, I assumed I knew how this was going to wrap up, and you didn't go that way, and I appreciate that.
I found the first part there was some laugh out loud moments.
Yeah.
And then you're
just
right,
settled
it
into
repeats and just gets
familiarity.
dull. But I kept a smile on my face, and I thought that was pretty important.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What did you give Godmothered?
I gave it a 3.5. It's probably high, but I liked it.
Yeah,
So,
don't apologize. You enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I gave it 3. Like I said, it was the mediocre 2.5 until that ending, and I liked what they did to that. So I'll give them a half star, 3 stars out of it. Not
Very
bad.
good,
We're
very
checking
good.
out. The next movie I have is a movie called Waiting for the Barbarians, which I found on Hulu. This is from director Ciro Guerra. Stars Mark Rylance as a man who is the magistrate. This is set sometime in the past. We're not exactly sure when, but he is a magistrate in a distant British colony. And he, in this film, he has his morality and his loyalty tested. He runs this outpost when a man named Colonel Joel, played by Johnny Depp, arrives and starts using a real heavy hand. They find a couple of men who are nomads and sick and seeking help for disease. They're outside the walls. These are not threats, but Colonel Joel labels them as one of the horde of barbarians that must be hunted down, and he interrogates and tortures them and makes an example of them, and creates kind of progresses this fear of these barbarians that are constantly trying to attack us, and Mark Rylance's character knows that that's not the case, that these are just nomads. They are not a warring faction. But it seems as Colonel Joel's mission is to prove that these nomads are barbarians and pose a threat, kind of giving him reason for his harsh recriminations, and it proves worth to himself and probably to his superiors about why he's even there. But to those who know the truth about it, it's kind of disgusting, you know? And so the magistrate knows that this spread of misinformation and fear of these so-called barbarians is silly, and he finds this young woman who is simply called the Girl, played by Ghana Basharian. She is huddled outside the wall. She's been blinded. She's barely able to walk. She's been beaten, and he takes her in, which is against protocol, to take this girl in, and he helps her. He cares for her. He treats her like a human, which isn't normal at this time in this place. And through her, he discovers all of this torture and abuse that is put on these people and her, and that she had her legs broken by these people who just treated her horribly because she happened to wander into their area. And he starts becoming more and more disillusioned with his own people. And his kind of heavy-heartedness and weariness at the forced suffering of these and the rule of law that his own British government is putting on these people really starts to drag on him. You can see it in Mark Rylance's eyes. So he takes this girl on a journey to return her home to her people. When he comes back, he finds that his place has been taken over now by Colonel Joel's second in command, a man named Officer Mandel, played by Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson accuses the magistrate of treason for taking in this girl and taking her home and not torturing her and blah, blah, blah.
You're supposed to torture.
Right. So
Sounds almost like a Monty Python thing.
yeah, so he's now, his position as magistrate is taken. Everything he has is taken away. He's abused. He's humiliated publicly in front of everyone. And he is treated like the barbarians that they all fear so much. And what's interesting is he's kind of willing to lose it all to prove what's right and what's wrong. And he just refuses to go along with what he's told. And I mean, it doesn't make him a great military man. You know, he's giving orders like this, that, and he's like, no, I refuse to. But he's a compassionate guy who kind of finds himself caught between his own people. He's also caught between the nomads out there. And then there's also the local people in this territory that they're in who kind of see the British as the conquering force, and they don't love anyone in there either. And it's a strong story, and it's one that's given a lot of heart by Mark Rylance. He's just really, really good as an actor. So good. And the care and the hurt in his eyes, you can just see it. Unfortunately, for this movie, Johnny Depp, you know, for the majority of the film that he's in it, specifically the first half of the film, he sits behind these sunglasses. They make a big deal about these weird sunglasses that he has on.
Yeah.
He doesn't remove them. And it kind of makes up the entirety of his personality, these sunglasses do. It's like somebody who walks around with a snake around their shoulders, like, ooh, you're so interesting, aren't you? It's like, yeah, this is my whole personality, is the guy with the snake. He's the guy with the sunglasses. And at some scenes in this movie, I wondered if he was even awake behind those sunglasses. He's just sitting at a table, and I'm like, is he sleeping right now?
So he didn't play one of his characters where...
No, he just played a guy who was very monotone and very recriminating against people, but really had nothing for his character.
He must have watched Cool Hand Luke and went, I want to be that guy.
There you go. And Robert Pattinson, who I love. I really enjoy Robert Pattinson. He's given very little to do. He's kind of just the heavy in this film who's just there to just beat on people. He doesn't have a whole lot of character development to him. I will say, like in the final act, Johnny Depp shows a willingness to provide some sort of effort. Like in the final act of the movie, he's like, "Oh shoot, yeah, I got to do something to get paid." Yeah. So that was all right. Seeing him actually he took the glasses off. Like, okay, here we go. You get 10 minutes out of me. That's probably unfair, but he kind of phoned it in. But Mark Rylance does his best that he can with this film. I just felt like it should have been a much better film than it was.
Yeah, you figure if you're going to pay the money to get someone like Johnny Depp, which I'm sure is not cheap, you want that
I think you
character.
just pay him in wine, though. I think just pay him in wine and he's
could
good.
Be, yeah.
I mean, it's going to take a lot of wine.
Yeah.
So ultimately, Waiting for the Barbarians, I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I think it could have been a lot better because the story was really strong, and Mark Rylance is great as always. But,
I came really close to watching this because I know someone who is a huge Johnny Depp fan, but I didn't have time, and I was thinking about, well, I'll watch it again, and thank you. I'm not going to do it.
No, you don't need the 2 hours on this.
All right, sweet.
The last film we have on our streaming spotlight, sir, what do we have?
We have Mank, directed by David Fincher. Gary Oldman, he plays Herman Mankiewicz, otherwise known as Mank, and he is historically known as the guy who wrote Citizen Kane. Orson Welles, of course, directed it. He was a very young director, 24 at the time, writing a masterpiece, but we're really not concentrating on that. We're concentrating on Mank, and he is kind of a washed-up writer who suffers from alcoholism. He's a little difficult to work with, and this story takes kind of place in current day and past. He starts off, he's kind of bedridden, and then it goes back to see how he ended up in the bed. It was a car accident, and it just kind of flip-flops back and forth of the kind of getting him to make the script.
What led him to this point in his career?
Yeah. Of course, Citizen Kane, if everybody knows, it's about William Hearst, and kind of a love twist that Citizen Kane turned into a sled. It's considered a masterpiece. And in this movie, it shows how Mank's relationship was with Hearst. It wasn't just, I know a guy and I'm going to write him. He had a personal experience with this person, and also the experiences of the people around him. I found the pacing bumpy on this. And he really, David Fincher, he does attempt to try to make it look like something that was made back there, even down to the reel to reel when they splice it together at the theater.
Well, I mean,
you have the cigarette burns.
he mirrors a lot of things from Citizen Kane.
Which I thought was interesting, but I don't think his use of black and white was as good as what they did back then.
Okay.
I was also thrown off by the aspect ratio, where if you're trying for that realism, the real one
Aspect
was...
ratio really gets you. This is like
It
the
really
third
does.
time in a month you've mentioned
I know, and it really doesn't. And for some reason, it's just the
Wow.
thing that lights me up like that.
That's strange.
But it's at an extreme wide format, which wasn't popular back then. And the cigarette burns kind of bugged me because it wasn't. It was kind of reminding you, hey, we're trying to be kind of like how it used to be, but they didn't use it properly. I think Gary Oldman, he is also a fantastic actor. He did a great job playing Mank. Star performance, but he was surrounded by people who weren't at his level either. You had a guy that played Orson Welles, Tom Burke, and he was fine. He seemed exactly like Orson Welles, but when it came down to acting and not just talking and looking like Orson Welles, it fell short,
Here's the thing.
especially when
He's
you're
only
next
in the
to
movie
Gary
for like
Oldman.
6 minutes, though.
True,
It's
but
a 2-hour movie. Orson Welles is in for 6 minutes.
I found that with everybody that was surrounding Gary Oldman.
See, I disagree, though, because I think Amanda Seyfried was terrific in this movie.
Yeah?
As Marion Davies, she's not an actress that I care for normally. I think
Yeah.
she's one of the reasons I don't like something. And I thought she was great as Marion Davies in this movie. I was really blown away. I was not expecting her performance. And I really enjoyed it. And how important Marion Davies' character is to Mank and the kind of regret that he has about how he treated her in his script.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Did you find the pacing to be fine?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's so much in this movie. I could talk about this movie for an hour because I think that it really captures what Hollywood was like back then.
Yeah.
I really think there's this, in a time where Hollywood was really struggling. And at a crossroads creatively, and that's kind of what made Citizen Kane such a masterpiece. Citizen Kane and Wizard of Oz suddenly come out and kind of rejuvenate Hollywood because they're struggling creatively. They're going to make another monster movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I also love that people like Mankiewicz and the crew that he was with. And I mean, this film is filled with legendary characters, names that built Hollywood.
Yeah.
Fill this movie out. And I like, his sect of people are these New York theater writers. They are not the California film writers. They look down on Hollywood.
Yeah.
We're better than that. We're theater actors. We'll come out here. We like your money, though, so we'll come out here. But we're definitely better than you. And I like how they play that dynamic up of how Mankiewicz, he never felt like he was part of these people.
Yeah.
And that showed in how he treated people and how he was always kind of an outsider. And I enjoyed his relationship with Hearst. And you see as that relationship starts to sour because I wasn't expecting them to use all the stuff with the politics and how Hearst used his yellow journalism machine to ruin a man's political and life hopes.
Oh, yeah.
And how that affected Mankiewicz and kind of turned him.
And I think, and I take that back, I said not everybody is compared to Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman is great, but Charles Dance, he did a fantastic job at playing William Hearst.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't in it that much, but he is one of the biggest. He is the reason Citizen Kane got made in the first place. He was considered very powerful and pretty dirty. He controlled all the information. And I wanted, even though he was in it, I did want more of that. Gary Oldman's awesome. I could watch him all day, but I wanted more of others.
I liked how everyone in Mankiewicz's life came to him and said, please do not bait William Randolph Hearst. He is the most powerful. Do not bait him. And that only sharpened his edge. Like, no, I'm going after him. One of the things that I was hoping this would dig into more was how the divide between Orson Welles and Mankiewicz, and how Orson Welles stole this script from him and stole credit basically from him, and how he took this broken down alcoholic writer, and in this film, Orson Welles is little more than the guy who hired him and kind of berates him to get him this script in 60 days.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a showdown at one point, and their relationship is so much more. And I was hoping for more of that relationship, and the fallout of Orson basically saying you don't get credit, and Mankiewicz having to fight for it. Like, that story is an incredible story.
Well, Orson Welles was also really known for his ego.
Well, right, but I mean, I wanted to get into why he would go after Hearst, because at this point he had all the power in the world with RKO.
Uh-huh.
He was the young hotshot. Why would you go after the hand that feeds you? And I was hoping they would dig a little more into that because I know that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see it portrayed here. I think that this is like a love story from David Fincher to his cultural ancestors, the people who built the town that he makes his projects in. I don't think that it deifies Mankiewicz. I think that it treats him kind of properly.
Yeah,
now the film
I
is
think
not
so.
totally historically accurate. There's a lot of big inaccuracies. But I really enjoy this film. It kind of spins you in circles in a few points, I thought. Fincher fought for years, for a decade plus, to make this film strictly because of the black and white was a sticking point for many studios. And he's like, I'm not making it unless I get the black and white.
After The Artist, you would think it would be a little bit more common. And if people are using the blacks and whites properly, it's very difficult because you're not playing, getting people to get their eye to something. You can't use colors or little gimmicks. It's really exactly what you see. I like the use of shadow.
I think it looked beautiful. I really did. I thought there were so many shots in here. Brilliant shots. We're almost out of time, but brilliant shots of like when you watch the falling out between he and Hearst at that dinner scene, and it mirrors Citizen Kane, where Kane and his wife are at opposite ends of the table as their relationship falls apart, and you realize the distance between them is physical as well as emotional. And in this scene, as he and Hearst have their falling out, pretty soon Mank is at the farthest end of the table, and I'm like, that's brilliant. That's just brilliant to take that little thing from Kane and put it in this. Like, I don't know, things like that. I loved. I think if you love, I think your love of movies will reflect, or this era of movies will reflect in this.
I think I just wanted, I don't know, I wanted a little bit more visual accuracy. That could be. Yeah.
What did you give Mank? I'm curious.
I gave it a 3. I did like it, but I didn't like it enough to say I'm going to watch it again.
I gave it a 4.5. I loved it. And I was happy because this is one of the few films that was on my most anticipated list that I actually got to watch this year. So that was kind of all right. But yeah, I gave it a 4.5. I watched it twice this week.
Whoa.
Yeah. I watched it once the night it came out, and then I watched it again as a refresher before the show.
Now, in case people don't know, the 4 movies that you watched aren't the only movies that
No.
You can also watch movies all the time.
You can also find doing some quick hit reviews of some films that are on our page and our YouTube channel.
I watched the one today, and I'm like, hey, it's Burl Ives. No, it's Rabbit.
Oh, funny guy. All right, so let's take a quick look ahead at what is coming soon, the weekend of December 18th. Over on Netflix, we have a film called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is a musical drama starring Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis. It is Chadwick Boseman's final film. So that will be streaming on Netflix that week. We also have on Netflix a film called Guest House about a newly engaged couple who buys their dream house, but it comes with one catch. Pauly Shore is living in the guest house.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, man. It's like House Guest with Sinbad, only Pauly Shore. What an upgrade. Over on HBO Max, we have Wendy, which is the story of Peter Pan reimagined through the eyes of Wendy.
That sounds interesting.
We also have I Used to Go Here, which is a comedy starring Gillian Jacobs and Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords about an author who returns to speak at her alma mater and finds herself embroiled in the lives of some students, some high school students. We also have that weekend is the season finale of The Mandalorian, which makes me sad that it's already over. So quick.
Letterkenny's starting up at the end of the month,
nice.
so there you go.
I like that. Before we go, I have to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring the program. I would encourage you to check out all the things they have going on. Just because they're not showing movies doesn't mean they're not open. They've got a lot of cool events. And if you go and check out some of their events later this month, you might see a guy that looks a lot like me hanging out there. So come say hi to us over at the theater.
It's Santa.
I don't know. I'm not saying. Santa. I just know a guy. I know a guy that looks like me. Next week, sir, we have films such as The Prom, Safety, Let Them All Talk, and I'm sure something else we'll come up with. But those are the films we're going to be talking about next week. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, you can also find some more content from us. I've been doing some quick hit reviews. I think I've got 4 out right now. Recently did one called Centigrade, which is a thriller that doesn't thrill so much.
And people are noticing. They're texting me and they're like, "Hey, do you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know."
There's a little something, films that don't make the show. Let's talk about them for a minute. If I'm gonna watch them, let's talk about them. And if you want to check out everything else that we do and just chat with us and let us know what you think of what's going on around here, we encourage you to follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Real Reviews TV is where you can find all of that. Whew. Well, you know what? We're going to be back together next week to talk about some more films.
Yes, we are.
But until that time, I'm Jamison.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.